Admiral Zektar's mandibles clicked in amusement as he observed the human fleet through his flagship's viewscreen. The Terran vessels hung in space like children's toys, small, angular craft that barely registered on his sensors as threats. Across the Galactic Council's communication channels, similar laughter echoed from the assembled armadas of a dozen species. "Look at them," chittered Commander Vrex from the Insectoid Hive Collective. "Their largest vessel is smaller than our escort frigates." The crystalline hegemony's representative, a being of pure living mineral, resonated with harmonic mockery. Perhaps they planned to ram us, such primitive tactics. For 3 standard cycles, the galaxy had watched humanity's desperate expansion into contested space. The Terran Colonial Authority had filed claim after claim for resource-rich systems, backed by what the elder races considered laughably inadequate military support. Earth's fleet consisted of sleek but tiny vessels, destroyers and cruisers that wouldn't qualify as capital ships by any civilized standard. Now, humanity stood before the Grand Tribunal fleet, demanding recognition of their territorial claims. The assembled armada represented the galaxy's most powerful military forces, the hegemony's crystal battleships that could shatter planets, the collective's biomechanical swarm carriers, and Zektar's own Dominion dreadnoughts, massive vessels, stretching kilometers in length. Humans, Zektar broadcast on all frequencies, his translator converting his words to the primitive Terran language. "You have trespassed on territories claimed by superior civilizations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of your ignorance." The response came from a modest human cruiser designated UES Defiance. The voice was calm, almost conversational. "Admiral Zektar, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Authority. We appreciate your concerns, but these systems fall within our established territorial boundaries. We're prepared to defend our claims." The assembled alien fleet erupted in synchronized laughter across multiple communication frequencies. Chen's vessel was perhaps 300 meters long, a gunboat compared to the massive alien warships. "Captain Chen," Zektar replied, struggling to contain his amusement, "your entire fleet represents less firepower than a single one of our escort vessels. Surely you cannot be serious about engaging in combat." "Oh, we're quite serious," Chen responded. "In fact, we'd like to introduce you to someone. Admiral, meet the UES Leviathan." Space seemed to tear itself apart. The phenomenon began as a barely perceptible distortion, like heat shimmer in vacuum. Then reality folded, twisted, and parted like curtains drawn aside by an invisible hand. What emerged from the artificial rift defied every assumption the galaxy had made about human engineering. The UES Leviathan was less a ship than a mobile fortress, a behemoth stretching nearly 15 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was a masterwork of angular geometry and flowing curves, dark composite armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Weapon ports dotted its surface like stars in the void, and energy readings spiked across every sensor in the alien fleet. But it wasn't just the size that stunned the assembled forces into silence. It was the impossible physics the vessel displayed. The Leviathan had emerged from what appeared to be a controlled dimensional fold, technology that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had deemed theoretical at best. "Impossible," whispered the crystalline hegemony's commander, their harmonic voice cracking with disbelief. Admiral Zektar's tactical officer, a reptilian Sauron, hissed in confusion. "Admiral, our sensors can barely penetrate their hull. The energy signatures are unprecedented. Whatever drives that vessel operates on principles we don't understand." Captain Chen's voice cut through the stunned silence. "Gentlemen, ladies, and beings of various classifications, meet humanity's first-dimensional siege platform. The Leviathan represents 15 years of secret development in our Titan industrial complex, built in the shadow of Jupiter, where your surveillance couldn't reach." The massive vessel began to move, and space itself seemed to bend around its passage. Gravitational distortions rippled outward, causing the nearest alien ships to struggle with their navigation systems. "For 3 years you've watched our primitive fleets and assumed we were showing you everything we had," Chen continued. You saw our destroyers and cruisers and thought that was the limit of human engineering. You never asked why we kept requesting mining rights to neutronium-rich asteroids, or why we established research stations in deep space. The Leviathan's weapon systems came online, and the energy readings climbed beyond anything in the alien fleet's databases. Massive barrel assemblies emerged from concealed ports, kinetic weapons that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed using dimensional manipulation. The truth is, we built our smaller vessels for exploration and colonization, Chen explained. The Leviathan and her sister ships were built for war, specifically for the war we knew was coming when the galaxy decided to test humanity's resolve. Commander Vrex's swarm carriers began launching fighter craft in panic, their biological vessels chittering in distress at the unknown energy signatures flooding their sensors. "How many?" Admiral Zektar demanded, his earlier confidence evaporating. "How many what?" Chen asked sweetly. "How many of these dreadnoughts do you have?" Captain Chen's laugh was genuinely amused. "Admiral, that's classified. But I will say this. We didn't name our shipyard project the Titan Industrial Complex because we planned to build just one." As if summoned by her words, additional dimensional rifts began opening across the system. The assembled alien fleet watched in growing horror as more massive vessels emerged from folded space, each unique in design, each radiating power that dwarfed their combined firepower. The galaxy had mocked Earth's small fleets, never imagining that humanity had deliberately shown only their smallest ships while hiding their true military capability. They had assumed human engineering was limited by what they had observed, never considering that the species which had conquered their own hostile homeworld might have learned the value of strategic deception. Admiral Zektar stared at the growing human armada and realized that the galaxy's understanding of humanity had been catastrophically wrong. These weren't primitive newcomers stumbling into civilized space. They were apex predators who had allowed themselves to be underestimated while preparing for inevitable conflict. "Captain Chen," he said finally, his voice heavy with newfound respect and barely concealed fear. "The Galactic Council recognizes Terran territorial claims in these systems." "Much appreciated, Admiral," Chen replied. "We look forward to future diplomatic relations, peaceful ones, naturally." As the alien fleets began their hasty retreat, the Leviathan and her sister ships settled into defensive positions around the contested systems. Humanity had revealed that they were not the weak newcomers the galaxy had assumed, but a species that understood the ancient truth that had served them well throughout their violent history. Speak softly, but carry a very large stick. The galaxy would never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again.